Hey there, you sexy beast. This is Ariel DeVito with Be More Than Fit Personal Training, bringing you your weekly health and fitness life hack. Let's just embrace spring. I know we're all fully ready to do so anyway, but I want to talk to you today about getting outside. We all know Mother Nature has some amazing health benefits, but I want to bring up specifically that it has an effect on our hormones. When our hormones are happy, our bodies are happy, they work right, they burn calories the way we want them to burn calories, they recover the way that we want them to recover, and it just makes an efficient body. So when we're outside for at least 20 minutes a day, 20 to 30 minutes is the sweet spot, we actually increase our hormone melatonin and we decrease the stress hormone cortisol. And just those two things in itself sounds like less fat being stored around our waistlines and increased sleep. So take the opportunity this week, get outside. For more tips or to speak with a trainer, contact us through our website at www.bemorethanfit.com or on our Facebook page, BMTF Studio. This is Ariel reminding you that you deserve the best quality of life available and it's yours for the taking.
You guys, welcome to this week's episode of the Killeleagh Show. I'm super excited to have a dear friend and colleague with me this week and a great conversation that's probably going to go in 100 million different directions because that's one of the reasons why I love her, is that we both have a lot of different passions. But welcome to Hayley Nelson, who is down outside of Philadelphia right now, but is native to the Fingerlakes, grew up in the Ithaca area, and I spent a good, 15 years there. So that's where we'll start on this journey, Hayley. So talk to us about what it was like growing up in Ithaca and what some of your influences were there.
I always say Ithaca is the best place to grow up. It really is. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. Yes, I am an Ithacan. I'm a townie. That's how I always refer to myself because I would go to Cornell and Ithaca College parties as a high school senior, and all the college students would be like, "Are you a townie? What are you doing here?" So yes, I'm a proud Ithacan. But born and raised there, it's shaped who I am, just my values and how I look at the world and people. I definitely feel like I grew up in a little bubble though, because, you drive 30 minutes outside of Ithaca and it's a completely different area. Still lovely for so many different reasons, but it's definitely a unique little island and, that's surrounded by land. But I love being able to visit, especially in the summertime. I don't miss the Ithaca winters so much, but, doing some wine tours around the Finger Lakes. My husband and I decided to get married up there. So when we got married, we were living in Baltimore at the time and, just looking at venues down in Baltimore and Maryland and, it's beautiful down there as well, but, nothing beats Seneca Lake and on Labor Day weekends with the foliage and the beautiful wines and the weather. And it was a really great way for people to be able to come visit the Finger Lakes as well. So people who had never been there said, "Oh, I've always wanted to go experience it and see it." And so we were able to, and, allow them to be able to do that, to be able to celebrate our wedding. So, and I still have a lot of friends and family. My 92-year-old grandmother lives in Rochester or Webster. Most of my cousins still live either in the Buffalo area, Binghamton area, or Rochester area. I still have a lot of friends in Ithaca. So I don't get up to visit as often as I'd like to, just because life is crazy. But, I love I'm a very proud upstate New Yorkan. So
love it. And, normally I actually spend time introducing, but I wanted to start there because that's that's such a fun shared experience, right? I didn't grow up in Ithaca per se, but I did a lot of my growing up there.
Yeah.
I arrived when I was 17 years old, and I left and came back a number of times. But I definitely share a lot of, the values, the ways of thinking, the open-mindedness, the critical thinking skills that
Absolutely.
Was part of being in that community,
And the thing is when you're a teenager, you want to get as far away from your parents as possible as soon as you're able to, right? So, I went to college in Geneseo, so I still stayed in the Fingerlakes area. It was close enough that I was able to go home whenever I needed to, but far enough away that I wasn't going to get a surprise visit from my mom, at a party or something like that. But, although that would have been fun now. But, as soon as I graduated from college, I was like, get me out of here. Right. But now as an adult, I want to bring my kids there and show them the gorges and go for these hikes and show them all the places that I used to go as a child and teenager. And, of course, I'll keep some of the things that I did as a teenager quiet until they're older. But, just to be able to show them everything that, upstate New York has to offer. So yeah. I do love visiting. I would love to be able to raise my family there at least part-time. Obviously we have our roots now here in just outside of Philadelphia and Downingtown, Pennsylvania. So this is home now, and we love it here as well.
Yeah, I love it there too. It's beautiful where you are. And I love coming to visit you there.
Yes.
Now, for everyone who's watching and listening, we can actually introduce Hayley. So Hayley is a full-time tenured professor. She's a mom of 2 wild and crazy young boys, wife, part-time business owner, one of my business partners, and, has a lot on her plate. And recently, got back into tap dancing, right? Did I see?
Yeah.
Yeah. So freaking
because of COVID, because everything shut down and all the dance classes. I used to be in a tap company about 40 pounds ago, but in my heyday. And actually, when I became pregnant the first time, it's just, you kind of put your life on hold, unfortunately. And, and just the weight distribution, it was just too challenging for me to try to figure out how to continue to tap dance. And, but then because of COVID, we're stuck inside, and my old studio that I used to take classes at and was in a company with, the instructor started doing online Zoom classes. And I said, yes, sign me up. So it was so amazing to see everybody. It's just like riding a bike. I mean, I was definitely sore the next day.
I'm sure.
But oh my gosh, it felt so amazing to get my tap shoes back on and to perform again. So I definitely itched that, or scratched that itch, I guess you call it. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to have some more performance opportunities in the near future, locally, once everything opens back up.
That's so great. I have to tell you a really quick story, and then I actually have some fun things I want to tap into.
So to speak.
So yeah, seriously. So here's my story, talking about tap. When I was a little girl, I would change my mind just about every week about the things that I wanted to do, which drove my mom crazy. We were a little bit asset limited back then. And I really wanted to do tap, right? So my mom went all out. She bought everything I needed, my shoes, my leotard, my tights, all the things, scheduled the classes, got me into the studio. Everything was great. I went to my first class. Mind you, so much money has been spent at this point. Okay. I went to my first class and I came home and I was like, I can't do it. And she goes, why? And I was like, it's really noisy.
Duh.
Come on, right? How come I couldn't figure that out? But yeah, I guess I must have been way more sensory challenged when I was younger, because clearly that was not the path for me. So I will live vicariously through you, because now I really love listening to it when I've gone to a lot of performances, because I've had, cousins and their kids who've, been in dance and everything. And I really like it now, but I'll just live vicariously through you. So
okay.
you're going to have to get into some performances.
Okay.
So we have, for people who are watching and listening, I love talking to people who are really values driven in their life and who share some of the values that I have. In the course of my life, I had a, wild and crazy 10-year career in finance that landed me in a place where, that I was just way too stressed out and my health was, not doing so well. And I took that leap and I left and I started my own business, which is where we come into partnership, right? And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But what got me to that path initially was this passion for education. I went to City Honors growing up in Buffalo. At the time, it was one of the top ranked schools in our country. I went on and did my undergraduate work in Ithaca and then graduate work in Binghamton. After kind of moving around for a while, I did some stuff out at San Francisco State University. But I have this like passion for education. And I remember when we met, Hayley, like you and I can get on the phone and we could talk for hours, like about 100 million things. But I love the work that you're in, especially because I started out in psychology. So we share this love of like the human mind, the brain. And so I just want to talk about that because I think it's such a beautiful opportunity to showcase a woman who has been on this journey to PhD. I recognize the fact that there are a lot of women who do this now, but it's still not the same representation as men. And so it's powerful because you balance all of these things, right? You have this beautiful way of like integrating all this into your life. So I'd love to talk about that journey for you, like what it was like, what it takes to be on that path to finish your PhD. And, when you were in the thick of it, like, were you like, oh my gosh.
How much time do you have? Yeah. It's, I love being able to look back on it now, but in the time, I mean, it was hard. And it's not for everybody. That's why there would be more PhDs out there if it were for everybody. But yeah, so I, in high school, we'll start there. I always, was in the honors classes and stuff. I was definitely loved science and math, but I also loved musical theater. So I was always in all the shows in high school and I did dance and everything like that. And it came a point when I needed to figure out what I wanted to do for college. I said, do I follow my passion for performing arts or do I follow my love of science? And I really wanted to be a physician. So I said, okay, I'm going to go the bio pre-med route. And, I had a few different college offers, some that were, NYU and Syracuse that were more like performance-based. And then I had Geneseo and Albany and a bunch of other schools that were more science-based, science-focused. And I selected Geneseo because I was able to minor in musical theater while pursuing my main focus, my major.
So fun. That's like a beautiful balance of right brain, left brain stuff. But anyway.
Yeah, because I knew I was good. And I knew that I could have, I'm the type of person that if I put my heart and mind to, as you know, if I put my mind to something, I'll get it done and I'll be successful with it. But I wasn't sure I really wanted that lifestyle of, being a struggling artist. And the odds were more in my favor to go on to medical school than it would be to go and be a successful, performing artist. And so I knew that I needed that passion and that drive, and it just wasn't there entirely for me yet. So I bet my odds on that, but still wanted it to be a huge part of my life. So that's why I picked a school that allowed me to minor in musical theater, so that even though I knew it wasn't going to be something that I was going to, necessarily make money on, it would be something that it kept me, accountable, that I had to take these voice lessons and I had to take these dance classes, even though they weren't tap, and, just so that I could fulfill that minor and gain that knowledge. And like you said, that left brain, right brain situation. So I went in with blinders on though. I was like, I'm bio pre-med. This is what I want to do. And then I started taking all these bio courses and I was like, I don't really care about photosynthesis. I'm like, I get that it's for some. And as an elective, I took an intro psych course and my mind, so to speak, just like blew out. Like I was enlightened. I just knew that I wanted to continue study psychology. And it was more human behavior and just behaviors in general. That was what interested me. And so that's why I ended up switching to be a psychology major, still completed all my pre-med, but and so had all those science courses as well. But then I graduated and I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. Right. So I moved back to Ithaca and I was waitressing and lifeguarding because I needed to make some money. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I have a bachelor's degree from a great institution and I know I love psychology, but what the heck what am I doing here? Right. And my two girlfriends were like, come move to DC with us. And so within a week, I said, okay, look for a 3-bedroom apartment. And so we moved down to DC. And while I was there, I started waitressing and lifeguarding down there because that's what I was able to do to pay the rent. But I started meeting people at the National Institutes of Health because I was waitressing at a bar that a lot of FBI agents go to and a lot of people who work for the government. and police officers, they all go there. And so they're all connected, and they were like, oh, you, with your background and your interest and your people skills, like, let me introduce you to these people. So I ended up meeting some people at the National Institutes of Health, and they told me about this great program. It's a post-baccalaureate program. So I started doing research at the National Institutes of Health full-time. And I was at the National Institutes of Mental Health, where I was working on a research program investigating metabolic disorders in women who have depression, various different subtypes of depression. And I realized very quickly that I didn't really want to work with people going forward. I didn't want to do research on humans. And then I was like, what am I interested in? If I want to work with animals, because I can just, go with their schedule instead of have to deal with, depressed women all day long. And I was interested in studying drug addiction. So that's what brought me up to Baltimore. I stayed within NIH, but now I was in Baltimore for the National Institutes on Drug Abuse, where I did like about a year and a half there, doing research, studying the neurotoxic effects of methamphetamine. So I always joke that I was the Walter White from Breaking Bad before Breaking Bad was popular. So yeah, kind of really investigating how methamphetamine at different doses, how it affects the brain and the dopamine levels, and especially, how it can actually kill cells permanently. So investigating that, which of course sparked my interest in wanting to continue doing that as a career. So I applied to graduate school, and I accepted the offer to attend Johns Hopkins University for my PhD, which I did earn. But I wanted to quit. I'll be flat out. I was the first year. It was hard. It's not for everyone. And I was doing fine in my classes, and the research was, I was working with monkeys at the time, and I did everything you're not supposed to do. I was getting really attached to my monkey, and I would go visit him on the weekends and feed him food. And yeah. And then I would do brain surgery on him. And, I'm just like, it was just too much for me emotionally to handle. And, but I wanted to continue to build upon my skills that I had learned at NIH. And I really wanted that degree. So I spoke with another advisor there, and he took a chance on me. And I said, I have these skills working with rats, and I was able to measure dopamine release in this particular brain area after giving them different drugs. And I know you work with birds, Dr. Ball, but would you be willing to, go out on a limb here and see if maybe I can do what I did with rats on birds, and study motivated behaviors, not with drugs, but I started studying male sexual behavior in Japanese quail. And there's a whole reason why I use Japanese quail, but I was the first person to be able to measure dopamine release during sex behavior, really during any avian species, to be able to measure dopamine while they were awake and behaving. And so it was really, it was really cool that I was able to do that. And it was because I had really strong advisors and mentors, and my now husband, but boyfriend at the time, was really pushing me and motivating me, and, saying, I know you want to quit, and I know it would be a lot easier for you to, leave with your master's and, go do something else, but you're here, you're at Johns Hopkins, you're going to try to finish your PhD. What do you need to be able to get there? And it was because I had that support with family and him and, friends and my mentors and advisors that were really very supportive of me, that I was able to persevere and allowed to keep my motivation levels up so that I could continue to, have successful research and be able to publish it and, earn my PhD. So
yeah, it's amazing, because I'm sure, like, I can't even imagine the number of times that, you had to struggle with that question of like, am I going to continue? Do I want to just let it go? Like, yeah. So, by the way, I have to point out, I don't know, can you hear the train in the background?
I heard a honk just then. I wasn't sure if it was a car or.
So this is really funny. I used to do my podcast in studio at Fingerlakes 1 in the 2:00 hour, about 15 miles from here. That's the same train that we would hear during our episodes. So I'm grateful that I can continue and still record episodes from home, but
that's awesome.
Super fun that we're experiencing that together right now. So yeah, no, it's powerful, Hayley. And I love listening to that. And the support is key. It's key with anything in this life, right? And I'm grateful that you had it. And it also obviously has instilled in you being that kind of support to so many other people. I mean, your students, to your friends, to your colleagues. I feel that level of support from you. So, it's powerful, and it's interesting how those things get embedded in us in these different parts of our life, and then how they play out over the course of our own lives. Right.
Absolutely.
So here's another thing that I want to touch on. When you talk about life happening. It's okay. Talk about life happening. It totally happens, and it's fine. I've got my little dog sleeping next to me right now. When I don't have toddler, the dog typically will take over. So
he's so vicious. I'm so sorry. Heaven forbid Amazon Prime delivers something. My dog is, it's probably food for her too.
That's so funny.
Fine. I am so sorry, but as you were mentioning it, being in the studio versus being at home, but at least we can connect. I wouldn't be able to be in the studio with you. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So I apologize.
Oh my gosh, no worries at all. I'm grateful just to be here with you. So this is the point when I start thinking about, why somebody, like you, who has this very full plate, right? You've got your career, you've got children that you're raising, you guys just got a new house. You're also, and I love to point this out because I think it's important, diligent about, making sure that your marriage is a marriage, right? Like you guys just went out on date night on Saturday night, or else we would have done our interview Sunday morning.
No, I'm sorry. We stayed out a little too late, but we needed it. Oh my gosh, we needed it. So,
yeah. And I love that. That.
No,
it's part of it, right? It's like all of the areas, when all of the areas can thrive, they just feed off of each other. And so talk about like why you would choose to add another thing.
I didn't want to add another thing. It just happened. It was not something that I wanted at all. It wasn't something that I was looking for. Now I realize that I'm so glad that I did add it, and it was something I was looking for. I just didn't realize I was looking for it.
Right.
I think what you were talking about, balance, right? And that's something that I've always struggled with, is how to find that balance in life. I'm always trying to be super mom and super wife and super teacher, and try to keep my house clean, and just trying to be everything. All the things. Yeah. And it actually took COVID for me to realize that I needed to ask for help, that, I can't be a full-time college professor and stay at home mom and wife to cleaning my house and cooking and cleaning everything, and having a preschooler in my house and have to teach him, and have a first grader that I'm trying to teach because his classes were going on at the same time. And I just realized try to be a nice wife. I mean, Tom was definitely the one struggling in that situation the most, because all of my frustration, it went out on him, and poor guy. My family always jokes every time I tell them everything that's going on. They're like, oh, poor Tom. I'm like, what about me? Poor me.
Right.
But it's that idea of balance. And I mean, when I tell people that I have a business, in addition to everything else they do, they look at me and they think I'm nuts. They're like, how do you have time for that? Mm-hmm. I don't look at it as time. Yes, I have to be strategic about, okay, there are certain trainings that I want to be able to do, and I need to reach out to these people this day, and I need to schedule it in, but it's something I want to do. It's not something I need. It's not something that I have to do. It's something that I enjoy doing. And so therefore it is something I need, because it gives me some sort of fulfillment. And it's something that I can grow from scratch and be proud of, and have success, and have, people recognize me for my success, and be able to train people and be able to be trained. And I'm constantly learning new things. I even just had a conversation with my husband, Tom, the other day, and we were just talking about our interactions with our students versus our colleagues, and then our bosses, like senior administrators. And it was something that, I don't know if it was you who told me this, or maybe it was our other colleague, Michelle, who said, you never complain down, always complain up. And I didn't realize the dynamic and how that can be applied to so many other aspects in life. And I was saying to my husband, I would never complain to my college students about my dean.
Right.
Right. And if my dean's watching, don't worry, I don't complain about you. But I would never complain to my students about senior management or, anybody that's,
Right.
Above me. But I certainly could complain to my dean about my students.
Right.
Right. And it's that dynamic about, and that was something that I, just very, not even health related, that's just people related and, business related and things like that, where, I'm constantly learning. I'm learning about our wonderful ingredient policy and how my body, I started my business through my own personal health journey. And I was discovering things about myself that I knew that I wanted to implement in my life ongoing. And why not share that with my immediate family, obviously, but then why not share it with my friends and people in the community who could also benefit
Right.
from it. So the business actually kind of just fell into my lap because I was so passionate about it. And
And you're one of the only people.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You're also one of the only people who can pronounce half the ingredients that, yeah. So we love
And
it.
if I can't initially, it's okay. I look it up and I figure it out and I listen, but it challenges me. There's certain ingredients that I'm like, geez, that's something I should know. It's talking about brain health, right? And, we have a product that has phosphatidylserine in it. As a neuroscientist from Johns Hopkins University, you would have thought that I would know more about some of these things. And, and maybe I just wasn't paying attention that day in lecture or something. I don't know, but it wasn't part of my vocabulary. And so then I powerful ingredient. And let me look at some clinical studies, not from Arbonne, but from wherever, from third party people, not even about our particular product, but about our ingredients that we select and we choose. And it's really, really powerful to figure out, how nature and how these ingredients that, some of them are created in a lab, but some of them are found in fruits and vegetables and things like that, that they can be really, really powerful and have a lot of healing properties.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, and part of why I love you sharing this part of the journey and your decision to jump in and do this, Hayley, is because our stories are so different, right? Like I use the business that I have as a transition out of my 9-to-5. Did I expect to do that when I started my business 14 years ago? No way. I joined because I loved the products and I loved what it did for me. But, fortunately, it also gave me a plan B that became plan A. For you, this just gets to be a source of joy, this thing that you are, like you said, creating from scratch, from the ground up, and receiving the recognition that you don't necessarily get when you've reached the top of your career, right? Like, because once you're tenured at school, it's like, okay, well, great. Now, you look forward to whatever the standard pay raises are and, however that unfolds over the course of your lifetime. And the satisfaction comes from the work that you do. But here, you're being recognized on a monthly basis for your performance. And I think that it's, it's interesting how that all comes into play.
Plus,
so thank you.
Amazing men and women that I've gotten to meet and know. I wouldn't know you, and we wouldn't be friends if it weren't for this business. And so, it is something that I truly value because I love it. And it's not that, yes, the products are great. I do love the products. The money is great. Sure. Love it. But it's really the community and the people and the empowerment that I'm feeling, the personal growth. I know I'm taking baby steps with the personal development. You probably wish I were doing it faster with the mindset and the meditation. I'm not closing the door on it initially, like I would have 4 or 5 years ago. I'm learning, and it's all of these new things that I'm constantly being challenged to grow and to learn new things. And I love it. I love it.
And we love that you can also look at it from the other side, right? Like what is actually happening in our brain and how we function when it comes to these different behaviors that we incorporate into our lives. So I'm grateful for that. But, for people who are listening or watching, like, please know this is not a pitch for our business. What I want you to understand is this. Out there in the world, there are so many opportunities that you can add into your life to enrich your life. And if you stop looking at it as one more thing to put on your plate and you start looking at it as something to enhance the life you're already living in so many different kinds of ways, you can really unlock this whole new world of possibility. So
100%.
Yeah, I mean, I love for people to understand that, especially when we've gone through what we've gone through this past year, and we're seeing the power of, having a side business as you go through times of interruption in the job market and all kinds of things. So, I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for that. And as you said, more than anything, grateful for the community and the people and the support. So,
Yeah.
So here's what I would talk about now, really quick. At some point, you make this transition when you're doing the mindset work from feeling like you have to be the person who does it all. And I'm pointing this out because this was something that happened for you last year, right? Something you pointed out. The person who does it all versus the person who can be all the things and have all the things because you're willing to be all the things. And what do I mean by that? Now I sound like I'm talking gibberish over here, right? But the reality is it means this. When we don't have like our ego attached to having to do everything, and instead we can just be who we are, live out our values. What matters to you? What mattered to you last year was your family, and what mattered to you was your career. What mattered to you was, having joy through doing things like tap dancing. What mattered to you was making sure you could actually, have a good relationship with your husband through this time and not just continue dumping all this stuff out onto him. And part of that meant, like you said, being willing to ask for help, being able to, really identify the support in your life and lean into it a little bit sometimes. And, for me, what that spells out is like so much strength in understanding that this world is not just about doing. Like, we are here to be the things that we value and that we care about, and to be present for all of the things that matter to us, from, our families to our friends to things that we're involved in our community. So, just if you could touch on that, Hayley, like what that transition was like for you. What are the values that you feel like you stand for?
Oh, goodness. That's a loaded question there. The first part, what was that like for me? It was hard.
Yeah.
I'm the type of person who I want people to look at and say, she's got it all.
Mm-hmm.
She's so put together. Mm-hmm. And I've had students come up to me and they tell me, I want to be you. Which is so flattering, right? They're like, I want to be a doctor. And because I go into class and I'm like, if you call me Mrs. Nelson, I'm going to look over my shoulder for my mother-in-law, lovely woman, but I'm not her, right? Don't call me Mrs. Nelson. I earned my degree. I'm Dr. Nelson, right? I mean, obviously, Melissa, I wouldn't have you call me that, right? But
I'll be happy to call you Dr. Nelson.
No. We're friends, right? But it's, I'm stepping into a position of authority. And as a young woman in the field of sciences, it's really hard for people to take you seriously. I was once told by a college professor, and this was actually early in my career, just in my bachelor's level. He told me that I should wear glasses as a TA because people would take me more seriously. Because, and he even said, he was like, I know she doesn't look smart, but she really is. And it's just like, what does that mean? I don't look smart, right? Like, how do smart people look? Oh, there you go. See, now you're smart. Now I'm going to take you more seriously, Melissa. Yeah. But I was told it. And so it's been, and it's like, oh, poor me. I've had to, break through these barriers of being, attractive young woman to be able to be taken seriously in a male dominated career choice that I selected. But, it's always been one of those things where it's like, I'm not going to ask for help. I'm not going to do this. I can have it all. I can be it all. And I'm going to be fine. And if I'm struggling, I'm going to keep it to myself. And because I don't want people to see what I'm really like. Right. I mean, I wouldn't even leave my house without having makeup on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it was just like, this is me. I don't have any zits. I'm perfect. Right. But then it took this past year. And honestly, I'm thankful for my business and being able to really be able to tap into myself to really be like, well, what is it that's standing in the way of, like, what is this idea of perfection that I'm trying to attain? Mm-hmm. What does that mean? And why am I so scared to go out into the world without makeup on? Mm-hmm. Why am I so scared to cry? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What is that showing? Why is that bad person? And it doesn't, right? And it took me a while to be able to realize that. And then so just this past year, really owning that vulnerability. And I had a meltdown with my husband and my mom. And I just said, I can't do this all. We have to figure out a way to make this work because I'm losing my mind, right? I was at the breaking point, and they were there for me, and they said, okay, we're going to figure out a schedule. We're going to figure this out. And yes, that meant having to put my children into childcare, right? And to have them help me and put my older son back into school because it was still closed. And I couldn't do it all. And owning that, voting it is really, really key. Mm-hmm. That not just recognizing that you have it, but respecting it. And because that showed me my values. It showed why was I so worried about being a mom, right? Because I love being a mom. I love my children. I love my family. Why was I so worried about my students not understanding this material? Because I care, because I love learning for myself, but I love teaching as well. I love to be, when I see a student look at me and say, I get it. I think the brain is so cool, right? I mean, I have hundreds of students a semester and I only get like one or two that are like, this is so cool. I want to do this. But then I'm like, yes, I spoke to somebody, right? Especially through this online teaching. I don't get to really, they don't, like, literally when I'm in the classroom, I am jumping up and down. I get so excited. I start talking really fast, kind of like I'm doing right now. And my energy just goes to these people, and we don't have that in the virtual world. So when I get that, so long story short, to answer your question, what was it like? It was terrifying. Made me feel very vulnerable, but that opened my eyes to really what my true passions are, and my what I really value, so that I can put those things first. Yeah. So that everything else falls into place. And if there's something that I'm asked to do, but it's not part of my values, and it's not something that's really going to motivate me, I'm okay saying no, because I know what it feels like if I take on too much and I can't handle it all. And if somebody asks me to do something and I know it's going to take away from family time to be with my kids, or take away from my students or anybody, in that realm, I'm going to say no. Right. And now I own that, and I honor that. And I'm okay saying no now.
Yeah. Well, and it takes you out of alignment of your values. Right. You say yes to those things, right? Because, part of, for those of you who are listening and watching, if you've never really thought about this, we've done a lot of work in our community, in our business together, around this idea of being values driven. And I talk about this a lot on our show, because when we are in alignment with our values, you could literally time study your calendar, open up, your checking account, and just look at where your energy flows. And if the things, the time, the energy, and the money are not directed at the values that matter most to you, that is when life becomes challenging. You have things like feeling stuck, or you procrastinate, or you do like all kinds of things. By the way, on Thursday at 12:15, we actually have a lunch and learn where we're going to talk about procrastination and where that comes from when it comes to values. And so, if you want to get in touch with us, we can direct you where to find that. But the reality is, taking the time during this past year when you could, right, to actually reflect on it, like, where am I living out of alignment? Mm-hmm. Right. And then doing your best to delegate the things that could allow you to come into alignment, to be in your zone of genius. That's another place. Like, I love the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, right? It talks about being in your zone of genius. Yes, we're all good at lots of things, right? But it doesn't mean we're here on this planet to do those things. Like, you come alive when you talk about your passions, then you are in your zone of genius. You come alive when you're having those spectacular parenting moments, like, watching your kids discover something, or, be at the zoo or whatever, right? Like, you come alive in those moments. You come alive when you're sharing stories of like some of the crazy adventures with your husband, right? And that is when we're in our zone of genius. And the world deserves more of us to be in that energy more often than not.
That's because they feed off of it too. If you have that positive energy, you're putting that energy out there into the world, and they're going to pick up on it. I mean, in psychology, we study about this facial feedback effect, right? And it's just like, if you have a smile on your face, studies have shown you will feel happier. Right. And then we go into social psychology, and it's like, if you're happy and you're projecting happiness and you're smiling at other people, they're going to see that smile and they're going to smile. And hey, if they smile, now that all of a sudden they're going to feel happier. And so there is actual scientific evidence to show this. It's not, and some of these like, oh, these auras, and I'm not trying to like put any of those fields down. It's just something that I'm not too well versed in. But the science behind it, the actual psychological science and neuroscience behind it. And there's evidence to support it. Right. And it's just, so I always tell students, I'm like, fake it till you make it, right? Even if you don't feel good, just smile. And chances are you're going to feel better. And even if you don't, you're going to make somebody else feel better. And by doing that, now in turn, you're going to start feeling better. And that energy exchange is so, so key. Yeah. So if you're constantly feeling run down and constantly feeling like you're not able to do everything because, hey, we can't do everything, right? Or we can just not do it well. And we're not in that moment of genius or whatever you called it, then we're really the whole world is going to suffer from that because they're not getting the good positive energy. They're getting that run down, not feeling like adequate, those types of feelings. So
right. So true. Well, I know we need to wrap up, Hayley, but
I know I could talk for hours. I'm sorry.
Me too. And I could listen to you talk for hours, man. We're going to have you back because there's so many different topics that we could go off on, but I actually decided what the words of wisdom are that I want to leave our listeners and viewers with today because of what you just said. Because this really is powerful. One, freaking go out and smile. Like smile at somebody today, right?
Even under the mask, smile.
Yeah,
please.
Because they'll see it in your eyes. Like if you're doing a good job smiling, you see it in your eyes, especially Irish eyes, right? Anyways, two, like do something today that makes you smile. Do something every day that makes you smile. Even if it's something that's like 1 second, even if it's like chewing a stick of your favorite bubble gum, I don't care. Whatever it is, do it. Because the more of that you create, it's like, I talk about the analogy all the time, like twinkle lights, right? Like those damn things, man, one of those lights not going to do a damn thing, right? Like I can't read a book with it. I can't light up the night with it, but you continue to string those lights together and it creates something really brilliant. These moments of happiness, these moments of positivity, we string those together too. And that becomes a life. It's really what that is. So Hayley, thank you for joining us. I so appreciate you. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. It's probably gorgeous down there in Philadelphia.
It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm getting outside. I'm going to get some vitamin D and go for a walk, get some fresh air.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. All right.
Walk this barking dog, walk her so she gets some of that energy out.
Yeah. Love it. All right. Thank you again.
Thank you. It was great talking.